Hello and welcome to another fun-filled edition of Adam's Music Box, where it was today in the year 2000. I still like saying that. It still sounds futuristic. That Rage Against the Machine performed a free protest concert outside of the Democratic National Convention in LA, outside what was then the brand new Staples Center. But just as Staples turned into crypto, it's now the crypto.com arena. So too we look back at what was in many ways one of the final hurrahs of the Gen X protest movement. Now, the 90s are always portrayed as a very placid era in the Western world. Certainly not if you were in the former Yugoslavia, but if you were in the rest of Europe and North America, it was considered a placid decade where history had come to an end. But it certainly did not, because there was a lot of tension below the surface that the so-called, it was always fake, Cold War dividend won by America and the West wasn't trickling down to the everyday men and women who were growing up in a society that was increasingly corporatized and commercialized, where you had a Clinton administration that was, for the first time in a long time, a Democratic administration that was enthralled to Wall Street and to the Pentagon much more than previous ones between Johnson and that time had been. And into this breach stepped Rage Against the Machine, who took many elements of what I just explained and put it into song. The inequities, and these are just, I'm not, these are their opinions, but they're, of course, very valid opinion. But the inequities inherent in the financialized capitalist system, as opposed to production capitalism, they're probably opposed to both. But this was the era when financial capitalism in the West overtook manufacturing and production-based capitalism, and the sense that we were beginning to see the beginning of atomization, of the end of social cohesion in the post 1964 model. Everyone thought that everyone would get along after 1964. It didn't happen. Instead, people became more atomized, even if the larger issues of bigotry as they existed in the 50s and early 60s had transformed into something else. There was still this division, and I think even between individuals, if one could maybe take a libertarian view on Rage Against the Machine, a very non-libertarian band, but as individuals, we became disconnected with our souls and disconnected with ourselves. And that's why, for me, the iconic cartoon of the 90s was Beavis and Butthead, because it was all about symbolizing the 90s as this postmodern era when everyone is so damn disconnected from anything spiritual or soulful or meaningful or productive, and that instead the best that one can hope for is seeing a video on MTV that's cool. And that's not to say Beavis and Butthead were stupid. Obviously, some of their stupid traits were exaggerated, but they were symptomatic of the younger side of Generation X, just feeling that all we can look forward to is a cool video and a good deal at 7-Eleven. And then they took that away from us. Inflation took away the good deals at 7-Eleven, and MTV became TV without the M. Um, Obviously, there were other things that were being protested, more profound things, if you will. There was globalization. This was the era of these big G summits the ascendancy of the World Trade Organization as a body that really became overly dominant in geopolitics. It was the age of NAFTA, a Bush proposal that Clinton warmly embraced and pushed forward. And Gen X, in many ways, had their final hurrah at this protest because it was symbolic of an era when people still had enough free speech to take this kind of stand before free speech really became on the road to extinction following 9/11. There was some revival of free speech after 2008 when the market crash got people angry and agitated. But then we had the phenomenon of 2016 when the tech companies said, right, we're not going to just censor leftist populism that Rage Against the Machine represented. We're also going to censor right-wing populism, the kind that Donald Trump and his supporters represented then and to a degree still do today. And so when looking at this video because it was all on video. It was, of course, a great musical moment. It was the band Rage Against the Machine at their artistic peak, but it was, moreover, and I think Rage would agree with this, it was a sociological moment in time when Gen X had their final hurrah before the millennials started taking over during the Iraq War, which was sort of that transition phase, and moreover, in the 2008 crash, the Great Recession, when Gen X sort of passed the torch to millennials. Then everyone got really complacent, but then Trump happened, and then COVID happened, and then inflation happened, and then wars and genocides and all the rest of it happened, and the whole rule book is being rewritten. So in some ways, things have changed a lot since the year 2000, but in others, the things that Rage Against the Machine were raging against are still very much there to be raged against. And I highly recommend that you watch the video from that convention on that hot LA day. It was a sight to behold. And even if you don't care about the political and sociological manifestations of that, it was a really good concert. But if you are even somewhat interested in Rage Against the Machine, you're probably already a bit interested in that stuff anyway. Like, subscribe. We will see you next time. Take care.